This house is really tough. My parents are both bedridden, and my older brother uses a wheelchair. Keep your voice down, they might hear you. But I need to say it out loud. Imagine being in my shoes. I come home tired from work every day, only to find a house full of sick people. It's really sad. Lately, when my husband gets home, he starts complaining right away. I'm scared his complaints will wake my in-laws and Bill, who are sleeping in the other rooms. But Brian, you just lie down and ask about dinner and a shower. You never check on your family. I've been saying this. I'm exhausted from work and can't handle everything alone. If you won't help, you can't complain. Wait, are you misunderstanding something here? Misunderstand what? Taking care of the house is your job, isn't it? Who do you think pays the bills here? Don't act like you're better than me. You couldn't survive without me. My name is Rachel, and I'm 32 years old. I've been married for 6 years. I lost my parents in a car accident when I was in elementary school and grew up in foster care until I finished high school. After that, I found a job at a factory that makes electronic parts, which is part of a big company that makes electrical equipment. My husband joined the main company a year after I started working there. We met when he came to work at our factory, started dating, and later got married. Before we got married, my husband Bill worked as a freelance system engineer and lived alone in a rented apartment that he also used as his office. After we got married, we moved in with his parents. When I first met my in-laws, they welcomed me warmly, even though they knew I grew up in foster care. I had often felt looked down upon because I didn't have parents, so their kindness meant a lot to me. A few years ago, my mother-in-law fell ill and became mostly bedridden. I decided to quit my job and became a full-time homemaker to take care of her. On her better days, she taught me how to do household chores, which I wasn't very good at. Now I have 2 sons, and I always wanted to cook together with my daughter-in-law someday. I'm so glad you're here, Rachel. I often found myself thinking, if my mom were still alive, would we have spent time together in the kitchen like this? Sometimes when I made a mistake while cooking, my husband would criticize me, but my in-laws would eat quietly without complaining. She put a lot of effort into it, so just eat quietly instead of complaining. My father-in-law would scold my husband. Bill visited us only once a month, but he always had a smile on his face. He would bring sweets from famous shops and share them with me. He was always considerate and kind, like a real brother. Being part of their family made me truly happy. However, 3 years ago, when my father-in-law retired, my mother-in-law got pneumonia and became mostly bedridden. She had been looking forward to traveling with her husband after his retirement, so it was devastating for her. I did everything I could to cheer her up. My father-in-law, now retired, took an active role in caring for her. Bill also came over to help out, and slowly but surely, her smile returned. The next year, my father-in-law also fell ill. He spent about 2 months in the hospital, and like my mother-in-law, became mostly bedridden. Surprisingly, my husband didn't visit him in the hospital, but Bill visited often and helped care for him, which was a huge relief. Taking care of his father without complaint is only natural, Bill would say to me. On the other hand, my husband hasn't been helping with my mother-in-law's care at all, not even when I'm at the hospital. I have a job, you know. It's not like John's laid-back situation where he can stay at home, my husband argues. It frustrates me, but with John's help, we managed while my father-in-law was in the hospital. Now, though, we have to take care of both of them. I thought it was normal to care for my in-laws, but it's disappointing that my husband isn't cooperative at all. Hey, could you pitch in a bit on your days off? I asked him. I think it would make your mom and dad happy. I don't have time for that, he replied. John doesn't even live here, but he always comes to help out. Why don't you do anything when you live here? That's because he doesn't live here. Be grateful I'm even staying here, my husband retorted. As time passed, my husband's language grew even harsher. I never realized he could be so hurtful, and my disappointment only deepened. John's visits to check on his parents and help with shopping and chores were a huge relief. I was starting to adjust to this routine, hoping we could make it work. But then John had a car accident and suffered a severe spinal injury. Now he's in a wheelchair. Why does everything bad keep happening? I lamented, feeling very upset. With John now in a wheelchair, he had to move back in with his parents. Another mouth to feed. Great. Is this your fault? What are you talking about? Ever since I married you, it's been one disaster after another. Are you some kind of jinx? My husband exclaimed. His words made me wonder if there was some truth to it. Maybe I was bringing bad luck to everyone around me. Should I just disappear? But if I left, what would happen to my in-laws and John? I couldn't imagine my husband taking care of all 3 of them. Since John moved back in, my husband rarely came home. He spent long hours at work, had business dinners, played golf, or went out with friends on his days off. John is adjusting to life in a wheelchair and can manage some things on his own, but not everything. He's still the same kind-hearted person he was before the accident. Sometimes I wonder if he and my husband are really brothers. My in-laws and John have been hurt by how my husband treats me. They've even said I could leak him if I wanted to, but I just couldn't bring myself to do it. Then one night, my husband came home drunk and brought a woman with him. "Hey, I'm home. This is my maid," my husband slurred, introducing the woman. "Come on, she must be your wife. She actually looks like a maid, though." "Who are you?" "I'm Brian's girlfriend. He said he wanted to show me what his wife looks like, so here I am. I didn't expect such an old lady, though," the woman said arrogantly. "What's your problem coming to my house? Chill out. I'd brought Brian home because he's drunk. You could at least thank me," my husband slurred in response. "Don't act so superior, maid," he added before passing out. "Don't sleep here, Brian," she said, trying to wake him up. "Oh well, I can't help it. I'll leave him to you," she shrugged and left. I was on the verge of tears, staring at my drunken husband snoring in the hallway. I wish I were just a maid. At least then I wouldn't feel so embarrassed. I could keep things professional. The next morning, I confronted my husband about bringing a woman home. "What's the big deal?" "I'm hungover this early in the morning, you know." "The woman who came back with you yesterday said she was your girlfriend." "She said that, huh? Is it true?" "Yeah, it is," my husband smirked, showing no remorse. I felt my heart grow cold as he admitted his affair so casually. "So you've been cheating?" "Well, I guess you could say that, but you're not even a woman to me anymore." "What do you mean? Why do you think I married you?" "I thought you would make a good maid. My mother was often sick and I needed someone to take care of her when necessary. That's why I married you, plain and simple." "I don't understand." "A woman without a family won't complain, no matter how I treat her. You have nowhere else to go, so you have to stay here." "Well, I didn't expect my father and brother would also need care. But whether it's one person or three, it's all the same." As my husband laughed and joked about it, I felt my strength draining away. Had he always seen me this way? The realization that he married me for these reasons brought tears to my eyes. Seeing my distress, my husband laughed again. "I'll leave you here, so make sure you take good care of them and don't complain about whatever I do outside. You don't have the right to do that. You're just a housekeeper and a caregiver," my husband declared. I was too exhausted to argue further, and leaving wasn't an option either. Like my husband pointed out, I had nowhere else to go and no one else to rely on. But more than anything, I couldn't bear to abandon my in-laws and Bill, who had shown me such kindness. They had given me a sense of belonging and warmth that I had never known before. How could I possibly leave them behind? If I divorce my husband, I'll become a stranger to them. They're the only family I have, and I can't let go of that feeling, I thought to myself. Seeing that I couldn't argue back, my husband grew even more audacious. He didn't hesitate to use foul language in front of my in-laws and Bill. "I'm so unlucky, burdened by these three. I need to blow off some steam or I can't take it anymore," he complained. From my perspective, he wasn't doing anything to help around the house or with caregiving. Instead, he did as he pleased, including having affairs. It seemed like he was enjoying himself while I struggled. "Oh, well, I'm taking my paid leave next month and going on a trip." "A trip to Hawaii with my girlfriend," my husband announced. "What? So it's a vacation with your girlfriend while I handle everything at home?" I responded incredulously. "You're technically my wife, but you're not my main woman. You're just a caregiver, so this isn't an affair trip." "It's a trip with my main woman," he explained casually. I was left speechless by his brazen declaration. There was no use arguing with him anymore, and honestly, I didn't have the energy to argue or to even feel angry anymore. I see. Do as you wish," I replied quietly. His announcement about going on a trip with his girlfriend didn't stir a hint of jealousy in me. It made me realize once again that I had no feelings left for my husband. The only reason I stayed was for my in-laws and Bill. I couldn't bear to leave them behind. That was all that mattered to me. My husband proudly shared his plans for a trip with his mistress with his family. But my in-laws and Bill looked at him with cold eyes. So the following month, my husband left on his affair trip, full of excitement. "You take care of the three of them without any trouble. That's all you're good for," he told me before leaving. Instead of feeling angry, I felt relieved that I wouldn't have to listen to his sarcastic remarks for at least a week. That night, I enjoyed a peaceful evening, and my in-laws and Bill seemed a bit happier. And then I slept well. The next morning, I woke up late and rushed downstairs. Oh no, I overslept. You must all be hungry. But when I rushed into the living room, I was stunned by what I saw. It felt surreal, as if I were still dreaming. Was this real? I had seen this scene so many times in my dreams. "What's the matter, Rachel? You look like you've seen a ghost," Mama said with a smile. "I think I need to wake up properly," I mumbled, turning to go back to my bedroom. "You're definitely awake, Rachel. This isn't a dream. We're in the middle of a strategy meeting," Mama reassured me. In the living room, there was a whiteboard set up, and Bill was standing in front of it, writing something. The board read "Escape Plan." I couldn't believe my eyes. Why was Bill standing? Where was his wheelchair? I glanced around and noticed it folded up in a corner of the hallway. Come on, Rachel. Don't just stand there. Come sit at the table, Mama urged me. Isn't this a dream? I asked, still trying to grasp the reality of the situation. Well, shall we execute the plan? Phil said with a mischievous smile, standing up. Mama also rose from her seat, ready to follow him. I nearly collapsed seeing the three of them, who were supposed to be frail and bedridden, standing before me. And then a whirlwind week unfolded. When my husband returned from his trip, he called with an excited voice. I'm at the airport now, heading home with my girlfriend. Have dinner ready. She'll be living with us from now on. Don't worry, you'll stay right here, taking care of us, playing the role of a housemaid for both me and her. Oh, I see. Do as you wish, I replied quietly. Then you're a pitiful woman, you know. You can't even complain when your husband brings another woman home. You have nowhere else to go, no family to rely on. You're stuck clinging on to me. Anyway, keep on serving me, he taunted. He seemed to be reveling in his own satisfaction, pleased that everything was going according to his plan. I remained silent. An hour later, I received a frantic call from him, a stark contrast from his earlier tone. What? What's going on? What do you mean there's a stranger in our house? Oh, they must have moved in, I replied calmly. Who are they? What are you talking about? Well, it's a rental property, isn't it? Once we moved out, it's rented to someone else. The real estate agent said he appreciated how well we kept the place clean, my husband explained. What do you mean, we moved out? Our home was a rented single-family house we moved into when we got married. It was meant for us and my in-laws, with Phil covering the rent, I clarified. Indeed, most of our living expenses were covered by Phil. Initially, my husband contributed to utilities and other costs. However, as my mother-in-law and Phil's health declined, he started withholding his contributions, arguing that his presence alone was enough support. Bill had reservations about his brother's behavior but didn't feel he could say much after moving out. Then he had a traffic accident that left him partially paralyzed initially. He believed it would be a permanent condition but began recovering surprisingly quickly, though it seemed temporary. This prompted him to move back in with his parents. Despite my in-laws actually improving in health, Bill and Mama pretended to still be frail to deceive my husband. They started planning to leave the house, with Bill's help being crucial for their scheme. This led him to return home. My in-laws had secretly purchased a retirement home with their savings and retirement funds, preparing for the future. Bill handled all the paperwork while they decided on their move. Upon discovering my husband's trip with his mistress, they decided it was time to put their plan into action. I was completely taken aback when they revealed their plan to me. To make matters better, they had already arranged a place for me to stay, they said. I apologize for keeping this from you as well, Rachel. I thought you might not be able to keep this secret because you're such an honest person. There's no way to thank you enough for everything you've done for us, my in-laws said as they held my hand and smiled. I wish I could spend more time with them, I said tearfully. You have your own life, dear. You don't have to be tied down to us. My parents are in good hands with me around, Rachel. You don't have to worry about a thing. But you know you're always welcome to visit. You mean more to us than a real daughter. We sincerely pray for your happiness. I was so overwhelmed with gratitude and happiness that I couldn't stop crying. When I told my husband about this, he was speechless. He must have turned pale, as he had his eyes on my Phil's retirement funds. He used to tell me to get hold of my Phil's bank card. Now he realized that's not going to happen. Where am I supposed to live? What about my stuff? He demanded. You didn't have much stuff. The furniture and appliances belonged to my Phil. Your parents sold your belongings, including expensive bags and watches, and gave me the money as a down payment for alimony, I explained. Down payment for what? He asked, bewildered. It's alimony for all the verbal abuse you've subjected me to. And I'll also claim additional alimony for your affair, I asserted. What? I'm not paying alimony to a caregiver, he retorted. It doesn't matter what you say. Legally, I was your wife, so I have the right to claim alimony from both you and your mistress, I replied firmly. Well, that settles it, he muttered, defeated. Wait, where are you now? Let's meet and talk, he pleaded. No way. I never want to see your face again, and I'm not telling you where I am, I replied firmly. No way. I'll send the divorce papers and alimony claim to your office, I stated resolutely. After that, he made numerous attempts to contact me, but I blocked him. Despite his reluctance to proceed with the divorce, Bill hired a lawyer, and we managed to finalize it. I received a lump sum payment for alimony. As it turned out, the woman he cheated with was married to his friend, and her furious husband confronted him at his office, exposing everything. This led to my husband losing his job. The woman was also kicked out of her house after her affair with my husband was discovered before their trip together. Initially, my husband had planned for them to return home together, but their relationship fell apart. Unable to secure a new job, he now struggles with debts from his past lavish spending and alimony payments, juggling multiple part-time jobs to make ends meet. He asked my Bill for help, but of course, he refused and brushed it off with a laugh. Later on, I found a new job thanks to a referral from Phil, and I'm truly enjoying my work every day. I still regularly meet with my in-laws, who treat me like their own daughter. I always eagerly anticipate our time together. Additionally, Bill has found happiness with a wonderful woman whom he's marrying. She's incredibly kind, and they make a perfect pair. I was deeply moved when Bill invited me to their wedding. When he said, "I would be honored if you could attend as my sister," I couldn't hold back my tears. I'm hopeful that I can maintain this wonderful relationship with my in-laws and Bill for years to come.